I think receiver is definitely in play if the right guy falls to him. My opinion, if you can get Jamison Williams at one of those picks, it is a no-brainer for me. I think he is going to be the best receiver to come out of this draft. And again, I went to Ohio State. There's 2 first-round pick Ohio State guys. That's tough for me to say. But I think he is going to be the best receiver in this draft. And if you can be patient and you're a team building and you don't have to push him on the field right away, and that's what Howie's been saying, right? Like, we're building something here. I think that's your play with one of those 2 picks. And I think D-line, you're going to have an option there. And I think that's a play that you can definitely go with. I think some of these athletic linebackers that they may need, you can get in the second, and they got ammunition to make some moves if they'd like. I'd like them to go D-line wide receiver personally. But corner, if like Derek Stingley falls to him,
unbelievable. All right, so joining us, look who it is. This is an honor. It's a pleasure, man. There he is, the man himself. Looks sharp too, man. He's coming clean on today's Sports Take.
Making us look bad.
That's right. We're in t-shirts like bums. James is bringing the pain, man. What's up, James Palmer?
What's up, guys? I wish I was rocking what you're rocking. I just got done a TV hit on NFL Network. We got some time here before we get talking Colts. I think I have coming up in about an hour. Just got done breaking down Andrew Berry and Baker Mayfield. What's the latest on his trade market, which is non-existent right now. Right. There is zero interest, and right now, to my understanding, 0 offers. So we'll see what happens at picks. I think 6 and 9 are what they're keeping their eye on, Carolina and Seattle. And they don't go quarterback, they'll pick up the phone and ask. But I don't think those teams are all that interested.
Well, I mean, go ahead.
For all the years that I've known James, and I've we've crossed paths traveling, coast to coast. I have never seen this man with a hair out of place.
No.
The clip-on tie is always in place.
Clip-on, okay.
Yeah. All right. It's a double Windsor, but okay.
Yep. And he's got the golden tones, and I say, you know what? I hate him. He's the perfect reporter. Even when the wind blows, his hair doesn't move.
Exactly.
I hate him for that.
Gunnar, I have this approach. 90% of the people that see me are probably in a bar and can't hear a word I'm saying. So I'm like, if this is like, all right, like they probably think I'm decent at my job.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, James, and James is a phenomenal reporter for the NFL Network. I've loved your work for years, man. Of course, and if the last name sounds familiar, your dad's a legend in this town. Scott Palmer. Forever at Channel 6 Phillies now. As good a human being as you will ever encounter is Scott. That's for sure. Well, let's start with that, James, because you cover the league. And I know you're going to be here next week for the Eagles, and we'll dive into the Birds in a second. But the Mayfield situation is a bizarre one, man. I mean, he's still there. Like, how does this shake out eventually? I mean, can they really go to camp with him in this mindset?
Yeah, and it may happen. It really may happen. Wow. This might be a situation where somebody goes down at another team. Remember Sam Bradford in that situation? It could be a really similar situation, because if you look at Carolina at 6, right, and we're looking at teams that are looking, and right now we could get into the quarterback class that we want. We know the Eagles aren't taking a quarterback in the first round, but this class, in my opinion, stinks. Yeah. But and not really my opinion. The league is very all over the place on this group. But you look at Carolina at 6. If one of the tackles, those 3 big tackles, are still available at 6, like they could convince ownership to say, like, Matt Rule's like, we got to take one of these tackles. And then they go tackle. Obviously, the Browns are going to pick up the phone and say, well, you guys didn't take a quarterback. Are you interested in Baker? But it's like Baker's essentially Sam Darnold in a sense. I mean, those are the top 2 quarterbacks taken in that draft. And it's like you're going to need Cleveland to eat a bunch of the money. And then you go down to pick 9 and say, like, Derek Stingley's the guy that's really linked to the Seattle at 9, and they go corner there, or they go anything other than quarterback, they're going to pick up the phone and call Seattle. But at the same time, Seattle just signed Geno Smith to $7 million to be their backup this year. And Drew Lock, guys, like, that is somebody they really liked in the draft process. Now, Drew's had an up and down NFL career and a lot of downs. But when he was coming out of Missouri and the guy was throwing 40 touchdowns in the SEC on one of the worst SEC teams out there, it shows you something. The arm talent's there, and they liked him a lot coming out. What if they want to see him for a year? So now where does Baker go? The options aren't really there. And you also have Jimmy Garoppolo in play as a team could be interested in him as well. So this could go into training camp where they're, I don't want to say hoping for an injury, but they're hoping for something to happen to where they can move him.
James, is there a leader in the clubhouse in San Francisco? I mean, is it Garoppolo who got them to the playoffs last year, won some playoff games, or is it now time? Hey, he got his red shirt, he got his apprentice year. Is it time for Trey Lance? Where do you think things stand there?
Well, Rob, a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, or whenever roughly after their season ended, they told Jimmy, like, we're moving on to Trey Lance. And he understood that. And I think he's one of the better people in this league. I think the way he's gone about his career and knowing him a little bit. But at the same time, it's kind of shifted back a little bit like, well, what if we don't have the offer we want for Jimmy? He's been to a Super Bowl, almost got to another Super Bowl. What if we're going through this offseason workout and the start of training camp, we're like, Trey Lance hasn't taken the jump that we thought. Mm-hmm. Maybe another year is not the worst thing in the world for him. We could put Jimmy back out there. That school of thought is like creeping back in. Now, nobody's beating them down with offers, so maybe that's why they're having that thought.
And he's
process.
Making a lot.
But at the same time, they know what they have in Jimmy. But I mean, you lose Debo. If that ends up happening, somebody can demand a trade. Doesn't mean they're getting traded. If that changes things, because I think all the guys around Jimmy are what makes him a little bit better than what he is. But at the same time, the thinking is that, well, if we have to go in there, it's not the end of the world if Jimmy's there and Trey waits a little bit more.
I think that's the consensus right now too.
James, as we know, we know teams every year stretch when it comes to the quarterback. Everybody wants that glamorous quarterback. And I think we all agree that this is at best a mediocre group of quarterbacks coming out. How many do you think will honestly go in the first round? Somebody's going to reach for one of these guys.
It's not going to be somebody. I think it's going to be multiple people, and it's going to be because jobs are on the line as one. We talk about Carolina. Matt Rule needs to win right now. And Kenny Pickett's the one that I know teams say if you wanted a guy to win right now, that'd be the guy.
Right.
But I've had multiple teams tell me, like, they don't know what the ceiling is from where he's at now. They might be, like, right here. Like, this is what you're getting in Kenny Pickett. At the same time, like, I think you might have 3 go. Desmond Ridder, like, he's sneaking into the first round with teams I talked to during this process. So when we break down this process, right, the scouts do all of their work. The coaches don't really get involved until like these last few weeks, right? When they start going to pro days and Mike Tomlin's going to every pro day and they're starting to get more involved. Once Ritter's been sitting down with these GMs and these head coaches, he's blowing them away in the meetings. How mature he is, how prepared he is. They love the fact that he has risen a program to a playoff team. I mean, he took Cincinnati to a college football playoff. That means something to coaches, right, from the quarterback position. When you make everybody around you better and you make your team better and you elevate a program or you elevate a franchise. So he's the type of guy that's kind of sneaking into that back end. If anybody wants him and they really like him, that could add Gunner to the group because, right, you're like, well, I'd love that 5th-year option on the quarterback. So if I can trade back into the back end of the first round, that would be great. And then Malik Willis is the other guy, and Matt Corral. Some buildings are completely torn on Corral. Half the building loves him. Half the building thinks he's not going to amount to much. And then Malik Willis, I talked to a team. No knock on him because I think he's a great person, great kid. They thought he was a very bright kid. Love sitting down with him. They thought his football intelligence was at like a high school level. Essentially, when they're describing things to him, like when we're in cover 2, remember, he's like, whoa, back up. Like, all right, like what kind of cover 2 you guys? Like, whoa. Like what he's asking questions about things in conversation in the meeting that coaches and quarterback coaches and OCs are just breezing over, right? And so that's a project right there, but there's a ceiling there. So they're all over the map with this group. But I think 3 could go for sure because Pittsburgh might go with 1 at 20 if the right one's there.
Yeah, they always reach. Go ahead, B.
Yeah, that's the problem there, because there's so much. I mean, this is probably the most mediocre quarterback class I've seen, but it's also mediocre as far as teams. You look at the Texans with Mills, even the Eagles with Hurts. I mean, you look at Trubisky with the Steelers. There are so many teams that just have to, just stay stagnant at the quarterback position, and next year, hoping there's a quarterback that's going to come out next year. So. I mean, I don't know, when I approach this draft and how I look at Howie, what direction do you think Howie's going to go to, especially with the quarterback situation, the receiver situation, defensive line as far as pass rusher, linebacker, safety. I mean, what direction you think they're going from a national standpoint? Not from us. You know, we live in our fishbowl here.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's start off with what you just said, because I think it's perfect about the Texans and the Eagles. I think they're doing almost the exact same thing. It's like, let's see the guy we have this year and evaluate them and give them an entire year. I mean, the Texans love what Davis Mills did at the end of last year when he was named the starter. I've talked to multiple teams that told me he'd be the first quarterback off the board if he stayed at Stanford for another year and came out in this draft. So they want to see what Davis Mills does for a year, and they're establishing picks and capital to see what they can make a move in 2023, because we know Bryce Young, we know C.J. Stroud go Ohio State, and other quarterbacks are coming out. That's kind of a similar thing Philly's doing, right? Like, you can look at Jalen Hurts, and my man Davey Zangaro's asking the question, like, are you getting these picks to get capital for a quarterback in 2023? Of course, Howie's going to say, we love Jalen Hurts. We hope he has a long career, because you are hoping that, because you have a second-round quarterback that you can continue to use this capital to build around him. But at the same time, you have to evaluate him and look at what the quarterback's play could be in 2023, and I think they get an opportunity to do that. I think they do believe Jalen has gotten better every year. And when I talk to people outside of Philadelphia, they say, well, look at him. Like, from Bama to Oklahoma to his time in Philly, he has gotten better every single spot he's been as it's gone by. Now, how much better and where's that top? They don't know. Now, to answer your question about, like, with the 2 picks, I think receiver is definitely in play if the right guy falls to him. My opinion, if you can get Jamison Williams at one of those picks, it is a no-brainer for me. I think he is going to be the best receiver to come out of this draft. And again, I went to Ohio State. There's 2 first-round pick Ohio State guys. That's tough for me to say. But I think he is going to be the best receiver in this draft. And if you can be patient and you're a team building and you don't have to push him on the field right away, and that's what Howie's been saying, right? Like, we're building something here. I think that's your play with one of those 2 picks. And I think D-line, you're going to have an option there. And I think that's a play that you can definitely go with. I think some of these athletic linebackers that they may need, you can get in the second, and they got ammunition to make some moves if they'd like. I'd like them to go D-line wide receiver person. But corner, if like Derek Stingley falls to him,
you can't. Yeah, you can't.
Can't pass that up.
You got to pick that. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. James, I want to play off of what Barrett mentioned, us being in the fishbowl. When you're in the eye of it, sometimes it's tough to get some perspective, but you obviously from here, but you cover the league. What's the thought process on Howie, on the Eagles? Yes, we know they won a Super Bowl 4 years ago, but kind of where things are right now, a team that was 9-8 and sort of backdoored their way in, to be honest. What's the thought process around the league?
Around the league on Howie is there's never a conversation that's happening in the league that Howie is not involved in, or Howie is not calling to check on, which is, I think, is what you want in your general manager. I think I don't want to say what Howie lacks from the scouting side of things, but from what his advantage is over GMs that come from a scouting background, him coming from the cap side and that side of things, I think his negotiation ability is an advantage for Philadelphia. And nationally, that is a perspective. Like, nationally, the thought process is he fleeced the Saints on that trade. Like, he found a team that was willing and desperate to make a move, and he came out on top. And I loved his little backhand comment, by the way, when he was like, to forget about the trade charts. I mean, both teams are happy with the trade. I thought that was great. Yeah. Sure it was. Yeah, Howie, you're just loving the trade right now. But I think the perception right now heading into this draft specifically, Rob, is the Eagles are in a really good spot because there are people that think they're going to win the division. They're going into a draft where there are a lot of tackles in the top portion, and they don't need offensive line help. And that puts them in a really, really good position compared to other teams in this first round, because they're not going to have to. And outside of quarterback, teams reach for tackles, and they don't have to. They're deep. They could trade Andre Dillard if they wanted to.
Yep.
So, like, the perception is Howie and company are building something in a direction. And we look at some of these teams in the middle of the pack, and you just kind of see them floundering. That's not the perception with Philly.
Hey, James, what do you think to be the biggest run in the first round? Which position?
I think it's going to be receiver. I think once those start going, it's funny. I was just texting with a pro personnel guy before we jumped on, and I was like, hey, a team told me that they think 4 receivers are going in the first round. And he was like, are you kidding me? He's like, it's going to be 7. He's like, it's going to be 7 receivers are going to go in this first round. I was like, oh, man. I think that's going to be the play. I think Howie is right on the press conference the other day when he said he knows what players will be taken in the top 20. He just doesn't know who's taking them. I think that's accurate. Like, we don't know this draft order. It's different than other years. There's not consensus guys at the top. I mean, people are still debating 3 different players at number 1. I think it's going to be Walker, but I think there's a debate still. That shows you how much, movement there could be in terms of players. I think receiver gunner is going to be the one that all of a sudden they start going and everybody looks at these receiver contracts and these guys looking for contracts and going,
right,
I could use a receiver
on
a rookie deal, man. There was 5 rookie receivers led their team in receiving this year.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's a thought process that the teams are having right now.
Well,
James,
I'm looking at.
Yeah, go ahead, bud. Go ahead, Ben.
I'm looking at the draft board and I'm looking at guys that are dropping. Hamilton's dropping. The kid from Oregon, Thibodeau, he's dropping. Who's some other names that are dropping as far as their performance in the combine, maybe in interviewing?
Thibodeau is definitely one, and we could break that down a little bit. He's one that, it's funny. I've heard both sides of it, but some people are like, I don't know what his want to is. I don't know when push comes to shove if he's going to really be the grinder that's, putting in extra work after practice. I'm not sure if that's there. And then I have other teams, somebody like, well, just watch the tape. Like, he plays. And that process, because he's just a different cat, though, I've heard too. Like, some teams have just been like, and that matters to some teams and it doesn't matter to others, right? And that's why you're hearing the dropping. Like, when certain GMs and coaches get a chance to talk to a guy, or a DC talks to a guy and goes, dude, he's just a weird dude. Like, that still can work in the league. Barry, you've been around enough teammates that you're like, that guy's just different. But
3 of us
play ball. Yeah.
I'll give you one guy like that. Yeah. Myles Garrett is that guy. Myles Garrett is a different dude. He wants to talk about dinosaurs and stuff like that. He's not necessarily what you would say is a football lover, a football, thinker. He wants to do, stuff that's off the board, off the chart. He just doesn't do that. But then you look what he does on the field. So I was thinking that, and how I approach Thibodeau, he's dropping right now. I mean, do you jump up at number 10, Howie thinks, all right, we can get him at 10. I wouldn't be mad at that.
I wouldn't be either. I mean, you finished second to last in sacks. I wouldn't be mad at getting
the
quarterback. But I think Howie is going to be realistic in who he's going to move up for. My understanding is it's a pretty short list, but he has it about who he would like to go up and get, and then where they need to get to for him to go, I can move up. Like you mentioned Hamilton, like I could see Howie being like, he gets to 12 and you're like, dude, I could take Kyle Hamilton. Yeah. And I don't think anybody would be upset about that at all. Stingley, who I mentioned earlier, the reason I mentioned him at this point of the draft is I did his pro day in Baton Rouge, and I got a chance to talk to him a lot and talk to most of the scouts that were there. There's some teams that are terrified of the medical and terrified of the last 2 years where he plays 10 games and plays okay. The 2019 tape is insane.
Yeah, his freshman year is nuts.
It's nuts. It's freshman year he could have went into the league. Go watch him in practice against Jamar Chase every day, and it was like ridiculous. So I think he's a guy that some teams are just going like, all right, well, Trent McDuffie is a safer play. He's kind of the consensus across the board, third best corner. If I can get that surefire dude, like I don't want to take the chance, but then there's enough teams, and I don't know where the Eagles stand yet. Like the ball skills are out of this world. The talent doesn't come around very often. If everything works out, he's an all-pro.
Hey, James, how did you draw the Philadelphia assignment? I expect you to be on the outskirts of Arizona, New England. How did you get so lucky, man?
He missed you.
Man, I missed you. Yeah, I knew I could maybe sneak in a Phillies game, which I will be going to on Wednesday.
There you go.
Me and Garofolo are going to the Phillies game together on Wednesday.
I'll meet you guys
Network
there.
Buddy. Yeah, come on over.
You guys there, yeah.
Listen, they're playing the Rockies, which I'm a little upset about because I went to the Rockies-Phillies game on Tuesday night with my gave up
so
a
you were
late
the
bomb.
jinx then.
No.
You're the jinx.
Listen, I'd say this. We give up the late 3-run homer Tuesday night, and I was like, dude, we got to catch the train. It's 10 o'clock. He's going through testing for school right now. I was like, we got to catch the train. On the train, he's like, we're following the scores, and he goes, if we didn't leave, we would have come back and won. I was like, I got a kid that's staying all 9 innings now.
He's a transplant for sure. That's I love it. Well, let me ask you, James. So while we have you, Sixers, and we know we had limited time with you, but Sixers, what do you think?
Dude, I guys, this is maybe the most difficult several months I've had in my life, living in Denver and having to listen to this Nikola Jokic love and hatred of Joel Embiid he's done nothing wrong. Yet the entire city of Denver despises Joel Embiid just because everybody here loves the Joker so much. I mean, listen, I think that is a career-defining moment the other night in Toronto, hitting that shot, especially the way the game went. Like, it's a game you're not really – when you win games like that, a game you're not supposed to win. You know, you're trailing the entire game. I think – I mean, I'm nervous if they end up playing Miami. They got a lot of really good pieces. I need to see James Harden. I was in Houston covering the Texans when Harden was playing with the Rockets, and I was working at Comcast. So we had all the Rockets games on our air and tons of coverage. Like, I need him to be a scorer like that a little bit. I think if they get to Miami, I need to see a little bit more of that. But man, like, this whole second half of the year since the Simmons trade, I've been like, thank God we didn't put Maxey in any of those trades.
Amen.
Like, oh.
Amen. Oh,
yeah.
man. All right. Well, lastly, I want to swing back, and we appreciate you squeezing us in here in between hits. But I mentioned your dad, Scott, great human being. But were you destined to end up doing this with having a dad like Scott Palmer, or was there a part of you when you were younger that was railing against it, trying to go the other way?
Rob, I railed against it like tenfold. I remember I went to Upper Marion High School in King of Prussia, and getting waxed by future NBA guys regularly, but taking foul shots, and people are like, the crowd's humming the Action News theme song. I'm like, get me out of this town.
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh, bless it. So I go to school. I wanted to be a phys ed teacher. I wanted to be a coach and phys ed teacher.
Wow.
So I go to Ohio State, and I want to be a coach and phys ed teacher. I end up getting an internship because I had a journalism minor. I end up getting an internship with the Columbus Blue Jackets. They were the brand new NHL team there. And they're like, brand new. I can do whatever I want for the website, for everything. And so I go in the locker room and I start interviewing guys to, like, I'll write something for the piece for the net. I'm like, oh no. I walk out of there. I'm like, I love this.
You got the bug, man.
I was like, I love this. I love talking to these guys. So it changed. The minor became a major. I didn't ditch education entirely. Still have my education degree, but I turned the minor into a major and switched to journalism. But then I still didn't want to be in front of the camera. I wanted to be like, I wanted to write, or I wanted to be a producer. But then I don't know. It called me, and the voice was there, so we did it.
James.
Hey, James, real quick. So when you come to Philly, are you going to stay with family? Or are you going to soak up some of that NFL Network money and stay in a 5-star Ritzy hotel and eat those 5-star Ritzy meals? Hey, inquiring minds want to know.
They give me a per diem for a reason, Gunner, and I'm going to use every dollar of it.
There you go.
And I'm saying, right, listen, if I have an opportunity, like, I love mom and dad, would love to stay out in Wayne. I'll see them. I think I'm staying an extra 2 days just to see them over the weekend. But if I have a chance to stay right next to Reading Terminal Market, I'm going to stay downtown, and I'm going to work all of my points. This is how my family does. I'm like 120, 130 days a year on the road.
Yep.
I need my wife to get these points so we can have a vacation,
Point.
There you go.
They're not yours. They're somebody else's.
Yeah, very practical. Very practical.
All over the points.
James, we're looking forward to your coverage next week, man, and checking you out all the time on the NFL Network.
Yeah,
and follow him at James Palmer TV. But you do a great job, man. We
appreciate
really
it, guys. This was a blast, man. This was an absolute blast. I'm excited to come to town, hang out in the hut with everybody. It's going to be
that's right.
It's going to be nice.
All right, James. All the best, man. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks,
That's
Rob.
James Palmer.
I got it. Yeah, take it easy.
NFL Network. What a great dude, man. He is.
No question, man.
He's a really good reporter too. He does an excellent job. They have hired a group of guys that are just they get it, man. They get stories. They got contacts. They break things. Really good. Really good. So
they should, considering they're owned by the league, right? So they should. You think they'd have more access than everybody outside of ESPN who televises the game.
That's a good point. All right, so let's get a timeout here. Let's talk a little Sixers. We touched on it with James right there. We're not done with football. We're going to swing it back to football a little bit later, but let's do some Sixers when we get back, because they have Game 4 tomorrow, looking to put those pesky Raptors away. We will talk a little Sixers when we get back. Barrett Brooks, Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis, Sports Take, JAKIB Media, YouTube Network.